This program provides education, not advice. Sponsors pay a fee for endorsements and interviews. See the truthayf.com disclosure page for details.
This is where technology, innovation, and personal finance come together.
This is the truth about your future with Rick Edelman.
Electricity, a big idea that's inspired countless new ones. From powering the light bulb to virtually powering our entire lives. 30 years ago, State Street launched the Spider S&P 500 ETF, SPY. A big idea that inspired the world to invest differently, and still does. What can you do with SPY?
Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Visit ssga.com for a prospectus containing this and other information. Read it carefully before investing. SPY is subject to risks similar to those of stocks. All ETFs are subject to risk, including possible loss of principal. Alps Distributors, Inc. Distributor.
It's Thursday, September 5th. There are more than 500 colleges across this country that have closed in the last 10 years. That's 3 times more than have closed in the 10 years prior to that. This has affected 1.25 million students. And the closures are expected to continue. I've been telling you about this for quite some time. There are a lot of reasons for this. COVID-19's funding is gone. There are fewer students in the pool because of reduced birth rate. We've got a rise in prices, as we all know, and it's causing students to think twice about the value of getting a college degree. The bottom line is that enrollments have been declining since 2011. That's 15 years roughly, and it is putting a real pinch on universities because with declining enrollment, fewer students attending, that's less tuition revenue they're earning, but their costs remain high. One of the more recent to close is the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. This school is 150 years old, and in May, it announced it was closing, and it closed a week later. Talk about little notice. The Birmingham Southern College, they shut down May 31st. In fact, they did it with no notice at all. Its baseball team was playing in the Intercollegiate World Series Championship in Ohio when they announced they're shutting down. The students went home. There was no college left when they got there. Now, here's the bright side of this terrible story. Other colleges are now beginning to offer deals to students that have been stranded by their school closings. When the University of the Arts in Philadelphia closed in May, a dozen other schools posted announcements that they'd accept the students. Ursinus College and Drexel both offered the students a 50% discount on tuition. Point Park University offered free housing for a semester. LaSalle said they'd take all the students, and the College of New Jersey waived its fees. All these schools jumped in because they themselves are struggling to attract enough students. So they're kind of scavenging. Actually, I think this is good, because in a study of all the schools that closed between 2004 and 2020, less than half of the students continued their education. And when a school closed abruptly, like the University of the Arts did, the students were even less likely to re-enroll. So bravo to these other schools for offering to rescue the students.
You know, this story led one of my listeners to ask me a question. I'll tell you what she asked in 60 seconds.
Invesco QQQ is a proud sponsor of The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman. Want to rethink what's possible? How about being an investor, not just in your future, but the future? Well, it all starts with Invesco QQQ. For more than 25 years, this single ETF has given investors a direct line to the NASDAQ 100. That's 100 leading innovators behind advances in personal tech, science, and robotics, just to name a few. And you can access it all with Invesco QQQ. Let's rethink possibility. There are risks when investing in ETFs, including possible loss of money. ETF risks are similar to those of stocks. Investments in the tech sector are subject to greater risk and more volatility than more diversified investments. The NASDAQ 100 Index comprises the 100 largest non-financial companies on the NASDAQ. You can't invest directly into an index. Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Visit Invesco.com for prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully before investing. Invesco Distributors, Inc.
Welcome back. The Truth About Your Future continues.
Here's what Laura in California wrote to me.
My adult daughter is going back to school for an MBA. I've heard your words about schools going under and what can happen to the students of schools that go bankrupt and close their doors. How can she research if a school is financially solid before she commits to attend? Where's that information kept?
This is part of the dilemma, Laura, is that schools generally don't release their financial information. They consider themselves private. Even if they're a public institution, they consider their finances off limits to the public. And if they are in financial trouble, the last thing they want to do is let anybody know about it, because that'll just exacerbate their situation. I mean, if you knew that this school was in financial trouble, you wouldn't attend, and that would just accelerate their financial troubles. So they don't reveal this kind of information. The only thing that I can suggest is that you contact the school, ask them to provide the data. I would think that a school that is financially solvent would be more willing to release its financial statements. And I think this is something that we need to press our state legislatures for, to get them to pass laws that require schools in their state to release this data on an annual basis so that students and their parents can evaluate the financial solvency of the institutions. What I will tell you is this: the schools that are most at risk of closing are rural liberal arts schools that have less than 1,000 students. If you're a small school that is offering the kind of a degree that is touchy-feely, a little more intellectually focused as opposed to pragmatically focused, chances are higher that you don't have enough revenue to be able to sustain your operations. These are the schools that have been closing the most frequently over the past decade. So keep that in mind as you're considering where to send your child. Does that school have thousands, tens of thousands of students? Or does the school have merely hundreds of students? The downside of all of this, of course, is that those small rural schools are highly appealing to students because they are a close-knit community. You have a very strong student-teacher ratio so that the students are sitting in a classroom with 20 other kids as opposed to sitting in an auditorium with 1,000 kids that are being taught by a teaching assistant, themselves a grad student, as opposed to a faculty member who is devoting their attention to the students full time. So I get why these small liberal arts schools are attractive to students, but let's just make sure that you're doing your best to ascertain whether that school will be in existence over the next 4 years. Oh, and by the way, on a related note, the Supreme Court, as you probably heard, just killed the latest attempt by Joe Biden to waive student loan debt. That plan would have canceled $400 billion in student loans. The Supreme Court, I think this is now for the 4th or 5th time, has said no, this is not constitutional. So don't assume that if your student does go to school and the school closes and the student is stuck without a school, without a degree potential, but has student loan debt from that closed school, that student is likely going to continue to be stuck with that debt, making it more and more imperative that you choose the college wisely. You can send me your question as well. Just send it to askrick@thetruthayf.com. The link is in the show notes. Hey, remember, next Wednesday, September 11, it's our webinar on the federal rate cuts that everybody's expecting to be coming soon, creating a very new interest rate environment, the first one in years where we have declining rates rather than rising rates. We're going to tell you all about it. Jerome Schneider from PIMCO is joining me. This is a wonderful event, great opportunity for you to figure out what the new fixed income opportunities are for your portfolios. Register for free. The link's in the show notes. If you're a financial advisor, you get 1 CE credit. See you next Wednesday.
I'm glad you're with me here on The Truth About Your Future. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to follow and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And remember, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I read them all. Never miss an episode of The Truth About Your Future. Follow and subscribe on your favorite podcast app.
I'll see you tomorrow.
How do advances in science, technology, and medicine translate into investment opportunity? Listen and learn.
This is The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman.